We found out late last night that some members of the Mueller team are apparently not satisfied with the interpretation of the Mueller report that was provided by William Barr in his initial summary sort of letter that he put together. Shocking nobody. I mean, we got the 4-page letter from Barr. It had less than 100 words from the actual report. At the time, reasonable people were saying, everybody pump the brakes. Let's find out what's in the actual report. We don't necessarily have to just assume that everything that's in a summary is going to be borne out by the final more than 400-page report. And if we were going to rely on a summary, we probably wouldn't want to do it from William Barr, a guy whose audition for that position was a 19-page letter, 5 times longer by the way, saying that obstruction of justice was a ridiculous charge to levy against Donald Trump in the first place. I made an analogy last night. It would be like if you're anticipating Game of Thrones season 8 and you see the 1-minute trailer and you're like, I got it, I know everything that happens from here on out. And then you find out that that trailer was actually edited by Cersei Lannister. It possibly doesn't give you the full picture. And again, it doesn't mean that what was in the trailer or in the Barr letter won't be borne out. I mean, Cersei can only use the footage that was shot, I guess. But you can just wait. The show is gonna premiere. The Mueller report will be released. We can just wait for that. All of us were faced with the choice. When we initially found out that the Mueller report was finished, and when the Barr summary was released, we could jump to conclusions or we could just wait and find out. And many people Scrooge McDucked that thing. And they were just like, I jump in it. And now they might find out that they're less Scrooge McDuck and more Peter Griffin from Family Guy, and finds out that the gold coins aren't actually liquid, and when you hit it, you actually splatter on it. Maybe just wait and find out. But let me go over some of what was revealed by the New York Times from these leaks that came out. And just briefly notice, they've done almost no leaking over the course of a 2-year investigation. There's been very little that's actually been revealed, and yet this has come out. That implies that they're pretty frustrated if for once they're actually doing some leaking. But here's what they said. Some of Robert Mueller's investigators have told associates that Attorney General William Barr failed to adequately portray the findings of their inquiry and that they were more troubling for President Trump than Mr. Barr indicated. Okay, and I'm gonna read the rest of the sentence just because I love the terminology. According to government officials and others familiar with their simmering frustrations. That is a nice turn of phrase there. The Washington Post reported that one anonymous source said it was much more acute than Barr suggested. And some members of Mr. Mueller's team are concerned that because Mr. Barr created the first narrative of the special counsel's findings, Americans' views will have hardened before the investigation's conclusions become public. And that is not only a possibility, but I would have to assume that was the point all along. Everybody wants to set the terms that we will talk about this by before we ever actually have the report. It is the reasonable course is to wait until we actually have the information and then evaluate it based on what's in there, which again, another pointless caveat that no one will acknowledge, might in the end buttress everything that William Barr said and add nothing substantive to the conversation. But we lose nothing by being patient and waiting. Again, it's going to come out. But there's a lot of views to be had and people want their articles to be read and all of that. And that's why people like Sean Hannity were jumping all over this thing. And Barr and Donald Trump and his messaging about it, he wants to be the one to write the headlines. And he hopes that people, when the report actually comes out, won't even care. They'll think that they already know what's in it, so why pay attention to anything new that might come about if there is something new that comes about. And specifically, their frustrations with the summary apparently are driven by the fact that they had themselves produced summaries of the report that Barr chose not to use. The investigators had written multiple summaries, and some team members believe that Mr. Barr should have included more of the material in the 4-page letter that he wrote just a couple of weeks ago. And they say specifically that the special counsel report was written in such a way that it would have allowed the front matter from each section to be released immediately or very quickly. So the idea is they had different sections on different things. So one might be the possibility of conspiracy, one might be obstruction of justice, and they produced basically like a thesis at the beginning of each one that could have been released and would have been more substantive. He chose not to use that. Now, after this information came out, the DOJ has said that no, there was stuff in there that pertained to ongoing investigations. It would have required too much vetting or redacting or whatever. That is possible. I would have to assume that Robert Mueller probably did not load those self-selected summaries with a bunch of classified information. That doesn't seem like his MO. It's possible that that's the case, and in the end, we will see those summaries and we will know if they were filled with classified information or if this is just a cover for Barr's activities being released after this negative information comes out. And let's see, what's interesting too is that you have people on Mueller's team, and again, we don't know how widespread these frustrations are. I mean, the team had dozens of people on it. It might be that 3 people are frustrated and it doesn't actually represent much or amount to much, or it could be that it's a pretty common feeling across the team. We will again have to wait to find out. But while they are frustrated, Barr himself is apparently frustrated. There's a quote from the New York Times. Mr. Barr and other Justice Department officials believe the special counsel's investigators fell short of their task by declining to decide whether Mr. Trump illegally obstructed the inquiry, according to 2 government officials, which that is rich, as they say. Yes, I believe Barr is really frustrated that Mueller didn't decide if he had broken the law and obstructing justice. And he just hated that the responsibility fell to him as the person who was put there to try to protect Trump on this charge. And again, just to return to, this has nothing to do with the conspiracy or coordination or anything like that. This is the obstruction, which I am more interested in. I understand that very few people are interested in that. Sean Hannity doesn't care what the evidence of obstruction of justice is going to be. He doesn't care if justice was obstructed. He wanted Trump to obstruct justice. And that is very frustrating. For someone who is worried about the precedent that is being set by both this investigation, the response to it, and all of that, the idea that we should not care whether a president shuts down an inquiry into possible illegal activity, that should scare us more than anything else, because that's applicable to virtually any future law breaking. I mean, imagine if you had any other president, like if you're not particularly interested in what Trump might have gotten up to, what if it had been Hillary Clinton, or if it had been Bernie, or Obama, or George W. Bush, and they have broken the law, or we believe that they've broken the law. And we want there to be justice, we want there to be an investigation. Coming out of this and the media narrative around the Barr summary, why would any president allow a special counsel investigation to proceed? I mean, why not just do what Trump has done? You can literally fire the head of the FBI. You can publicly attack your attorney general for like 2 years because they didn't protect you from this investigation. You can go on TV and admit that you fired the FBI director. You can continually attack the investigators, even calling them treasonous and lying about their political affiliation to discredit the investigation. You can continually badger and harass and threaten witnesses, calling them rats if they cooperate with the investigation. You can blatantly dangle pardons for people to stop them from cooperating with the investigation. And that goes for any future law breaking. Why would any president abide anything that could potentially reveal laws that they had broken when the precedent has now been set that we don't give a damn if they obstruct justice? And so that is very scary. And that is why in that particular area of the Mueller report, I am very interested to see what they actually had, because apparently the story is not as simple as was portrayed by William Barr. And again, more caveats. In the end, nothing may change, but there is no harm whatsoever in actually waiting to find out what's in the real report rather than jumping into what we want to be there, our interpretations of William Barr's summary so far. Thank you very much for watching this clip from the Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.